and many other things, amazing fiddle player, and amongst many other things. So, Julian, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, everybody.
Yay. We might quickly all introduce ourselves, so we'll start with our Zoomer.
Me.
I'm the Zoomer, am I?
Yep, you're also a Zoomer. Do you want to introduce yourself too?
Sorry, Megan, after you.
Yeah. I'm Megan.
Nice to see you, Megan. I'm Julian.
Wonderful, and then we'll go...
Finn,
Dougie.
Mikey,
James.
And Matt. We're all here. How are you feeling today, Julian?
Feeling very well, yeah. Lovely, the sun is shining. It's a beautiful day.
It's getting a bit cloudy though. We were playing sunshine on a rainy day before, so we'll see if this thunderstorm eventuates. But should we jump into some questions?
Yeah.
Alrighty. Who wants to go first?
Me.
Dougie's throwing his hand up. You ready, Julian?
Just remind my questions, Matt.
Alright, so one of your questions was about conducting an orchestra.
What is it like conducting an orchestra, Julian?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't get to conduct the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra, but I do get to conduct lots of other orchestras and choirs and string groups. I love it. I think when I'm conducting, I kind of have a picture in my brain of what I want it to sound like, and I'm trying to get the orchestra to join me and want them to want it to sound like that as well. Yep. So yeah, it's a wonderful thing, and a lot of times when we're doing creative workshops, I get sort of the people in the group to conduct as well, and I love the expression on people's faces when they start controlling the music and making things go louder and softer.
Is it hard to get the orchestra to do what you want to do, or musical groups in general?
It depends. I really like doing things that are kind of groove based with string players. So, and sometimes that's not a thing that string players are used to doing. So I really like the challenge of trying to get sort of people to think a different way with their instruments or create different sound with their instruments. So for that kind of stuff, it can be quite exciting. And various degrees of success. I'm sort of getting better as I do it more, but I'm always learning still.
Yeah, cool. All right, who wants to go next? Finn, do you want to choose one of yours?
Yeah, I can go next.
Yeah.
Pop
Pop band?
Have you been in a pop band?
I have.
Ooh.
I think the very first band I played in Adelaide was a sort of a folky pop band called Don't Bring Lulu.
Don't bring Lulu. Wow.
Who was Lulu?
Lulu.
Definitely.
And I think we were number one on the SA charts for about 4 or 5 weeks.
Whoa, with what song?
Don't bring Lulu.
I'm not sure what that means, but no, the album, a little debut album.
Cool.
But you may know our lead singer and songwriter is now the artistic director of Brink Productions.
Oh. Can you pronounce that again? Just we cut out for a second.
So Chris Drummond was the lead singer of the band. Yeah,
cool.
I think he's very embarrassed about it now, but he's got an amazing voice and wrote really great songs. And it was a bit Things of Stone and Woody, like named a lot of places in Adelaide and was singing about late nights at the Left Bank and things like that.
Oh, fantastic. Pop band. And what do you like about playing in pop groups?
I kind of learnt a lot of my craft playing with Don't Bring Lulu because I had never played in a band before. Yeah. And as a violin player, that was a new thing about not having music in front of me and working out what my role in the band was. And I probably played way too much in Don't Bring Lulu. But trying to work out what the song needs, what you can do to make the song sound better or give it some more excitement or variety. So that was a really good education for me because everyone else in the band was a lot more experienced than I was, and they were quite generous, I think, in allowing me to be in their group for a while.
Yeah, cool. All right, who's next? Mikey.
Is it hard to learn a new instrument when you're being in an orchestra?
Yeah, I think the first instrument you learn is probably the one that takes you the longest. Hard, I guess. Difficult, maybe. I think I really like not playing instruments well as well. Like I'm trying to learn trombone at the moment, and it's hard for me because I never played it before. But I'm really enjoying the process, even though I probably sound really scary on it.
Trombones can be a
Make it
scary
sound-
instrument.
Yeah, they can.
The first instrument I think always takes the longest, and then after that there are lots of principles that you can apply to all other instruments. Like once you know how to read music a bit, or know a little bit about dynamics and up and down and loud and soft and fast and slow, those things you can carry over to any instruments. So yeah.
Was violin your first instrument?
Kind of. I did piano for a year when I was in year 2 at school, and I think I was a little bit annoying for my teacher. I was making up lots of little tunes, and she said to my mum in exasperation, "Put him on the violin." And so she thought, okay. And then I thought, great, I get to take something home which is mine, so I quite like the idea of having a violin.
Yeah,
And
cool.
it had a really nice smelling case, and lots of fluffy bits inside it, and pieces that I wasn't supposed to break, and so it felt quite important in
Yeah.
year 3 having a violin. Yeah.
Fantastic. Alright, Megan, what you got for us?
How do you know when it's the right time to play?
That is a really, really good question. And I'm still trying to work that out. As a general rule, it is.
Oop, I might just get you to just start again with as a general rule. Just got a bit of an unstable
As a
connection.
general rule, the less I play, I think, is better. So sometimes I'm just trying to be on stage and hold the violin and not do anything so I don't get in the way. But and I'm kind of joking about it, but it's like if you've got a song that's 3 minutes long and you're playing for the entire 3 minutes of that song, and the violin was a little bit less special to find the right moment to come in or the right way to come in, and then it can be a really exciting thing when the violin comes in. So if I'm playing along with a song that I don't even know and I'm trying to learn it as I go along, then I might just lay out for the first verse and the first chorus and then try and find a nice subtle way to go in or come in really loud on the bridge or something like that. And yeah, so but it's a really good question, like knowing when to come in is something that I'm still working on and I'm still trying to refine.
It sounds like it's more about figuring out when to not play.
I think so. I think that's it's a really strong thing, like, because music is half silence and half notes, and knowing how to play those silences is really important too.
Alright, Mr. Kurtz, you got one for us?
Okay. Do you only play original music?
Do I play original music?
Or only play
I do.
Only.
Oh, I know a bit of both actually. I really love playing original music. I'd like doing that more. I like the fact that you're putting something new into the world, and that's quite exciting. But I love playing covers as well, so other people's music. That's really, really good for learning about what other fiddle players do, what other composers do. It teaches me about different song structures and different chord colours that people might use. So I think it's a really valuable thing to do. I don't think it's ideal to do just one or just the other. I think they both complement each other. So yeah, I love playing original music, but I also love doing covers as well.
Oh yeah.
Do you find in classical music they've got that balance right, or do you think what do you think in that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I probably wouldn't call myself a classical musician, even though I play, a classical instrument. But my violin is quite a modern-looking violin. I don't know. It's not from radio, is it? Like it's a kind of a new design of violin. So it's typically made for playing more contemporary music. Classical music is very interesting because you are mostly playing other people's music, and then your original thing that you do to it is the way you interpret that music. So you get to choose how you shape the phrases and the kind of sounds that you evoke. I mean, music on a page gives you some information, it doesn't give you all the information. I think it gives you about 60% of the information of what the music is. And one of the reasons why I don't think I became a classical violin player was because I wasn't listening to enough classical violin music to sort of absorb all those little things that are not on the page that you need to make the music happen. But when I played sort of folk music, or whether it was Italian music or flamenco and that kind of things, I was listening to a lot of that music, so I was able to bring all those unconscious elements into the music.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, I think we're back around to who went first? Was it you, Dougie?
Yeah.
All right, Dougie, what's another one of your questions?
What's the other one, Matt?
So you had a question about what it feels like to play with other musicians.
What does it feel like, Julian, to feel with other musicians?
What does it feel like to play with other musicians?
Yes.
Okay, that's my favourite thing. If it wasn't for other musicians, I probably wouldn't be playing violin anymore, because I used to find practicing in my bedroom quite lonely. But when I went out and played in string quartets or ensembles or bands or folk music, you know, like Kayleys and Irish music, then it became about sort of our little community. I think on stage you're having little conversations and you're having little moments with each other. I think it's a very community thing, making music. It's not really a solo pursuit.
Yeah.
So I really live for making music with other people. That's what makes me happy.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Thelonious Monk. I remember writing in one of his random scroll of notes said that, you know, when you're playing on stage, you're having three conversations at once. You know, you're having a conversation with yourself, you're having a conversation with the other musicians, and you're having a conversation with the audience.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. You can use that. Thank you.
All right, who was next? Finn, do you want to go?
Yeah, I can go.
Alrighty.
Oh yeah. What favourite football team do you go for?
Oh, I think football team goes a bit over my head. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah,
I'm
not a sports fan?
I like playing sports, and again, I play sports like I play trombone, like I'm very enthusiastic. I'm not very good. But I'm not very good at sitting down and watching the game. Probably if I went to a game, I'd have a good time, but I haven't sort of gone down that road. I'd go, yeah, I like
The other-
sitting and having a hot pie on a cold day.
That was a crappy
What
gaming.
sport do you play? Or do you
Me?
like to play? Yeah.
Mainly, I guess the biggest thing I did was swimming when I was over in the UK, so I used to like swimming. And I used to play squash and badminton with some friends, and beach cricket and things like that.
Nice.
And now I'm playing netball because I've got daughters and they're playing netball, so I'm learning all rules, not running. It's very hard to do.
Does anybody else here do swimming or netball?
I do swimming.
You do swimming?
Let's go swimming years ago.
Well, swimming lessons.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
What do you like
better.
about being in the pool, Dougie?
I like it's so warm, Julian. I don't want to get out. Because I know when you go out, it's freezing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right, that's true. Yeah.
Well, I've got
Then you pull up.
my girlfriend plays netball.
Oh yeah. Yeah, cool. It's a great sport.
In those swimming places, then they
It's rough.
putting heaters in there in the room and in the
People
pool
hitting
and
each other and
Oh yeah, in netball.
Yeah, and shoving and pushing.
Oh,
it,
dear.
it always happens in sport. It always happens in sport.
People get too
Except
excited.
for chess.
Oh yeah, chess.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like chess could get pretty violent outside of here.
Yeah, if someone's in a chess game, they just swatting the ball and going, I don't like this game anymore.
I've also heard of a sport called chess boxing, where you alternate between rounds of chess and like boxing matches.
Wow.
How does that work?
Well, I guess if you start winning boxing, you're probably going to start winning chess as well.
But you don't box people.
No, you don't box people. No, that's not on.
Oh dear.
I don't play chess or anything.
All right, Michael, you got a question for us?
Of course. How long does it take to compose a piece for an entire orchestra?
You know what? That's a really, really good question. It always takes a lot longer than I think it's going to take. The general consensus is you should be able to get about 3 minutes of music down in a day for a whole orchestra.
Wow.
So 3 minutes,
Wow.
and I'm not that fast. And I think I feel like I'm still learning so much about orchestrating. I'm still learning on the job. So a lot of the time I'm trying things out, and I might spend 4 hours trying out 5 seconds of music.
Wow.
And going in circles a little bit because I'm trying to get a sound or something like that, and I can't quite get it yet. Yeah. So it takes a long time. When we were doing the Floods of Fire project and the piece that we wrote with Tutti and the Orchestra,
Yeah.
it was supposed to take me about 2 days. I think it took me about 5 days. It was supposed to be about 3 minutes long. It was about 9 minutes.
Floods of
And
fire,
I cut about 4 minutes from it as well because it was getting so.
Well, for our listeners at home, just to fill you in, so Floods of Fire is a project that's been happening in collaboration between Tutti and the ASO and Nexus Arts, and there's been some wonderful pieces to come out of it. And who were you collaborating with, Julian?
So the piece I was referring to, I was collaborating with the creative writing group at Tutti Arts and the Orchestra.
Yeah.
So with the creative writing group, we wrote some poetry around the theme of floods and fire. And with Orchestra, we turned those themes into melodic phrases, and we even drew some graphic scores on the whiteboard of what we thought the orchestration was going to look like, and that became the structure that I was writing to.
Yeah, cool. Sounded wonderful at rehearsal, so.
That's pretty exciting. Pretty moving. Yeah.
All right, James?
Okay, have you ever done sound effects for video games or TV shows or something?
Sound effects. I did a video game like about 25 years ago.
Wow, 25 years ago.
Whoa.
Wow.
Oh, it was 8-bit or something like that.
Cool.
Back in PlayStation 2 days, there was a guy in Adelaide writing some soundtracks for some military game, and I did some strings for that. I didn't do sound effects though. I'd love to do sound effects. I've done a little bit of television work and some short films, and I like doing sound effects on the violin. Should I show you some? I've got my violin.
Oh yes, let's hear some
yeah.
sound effects on the violin.
All right. So this is 25 years ago. So the telephones used to sound like this. And if I'm doing sort of a short film that's set on a boat, I can do this.
Wow.
What about a doorbell?
I do doorbells,
Then the seagulls.
seagull,
Whoa.
Yeah.
Does sound like a seagull.
something a dolphin or something like that.
Can we give some requests? And
All
all right, so Dougie asked for a doorbell.
Doorbell.
I'm home. Honey, I'm home.
Honey, I'm home.
You know where I got that Julian from?
Where's that from?
Hans.
Oh, was that a Hans thing?
Yeah.
He goes,
Honey, I'm home. Honey, I'm home.
Hans has been around Tutti a bit recently. Any other requests for sound effects? See if we can test Julian.
Anything from My Brothers?
Mario Brothers.
Oh man. I don't know the melody.
Maybe not something so complicated.
Yeah, sound effects.
How about something that's very simple, like say, let's see, give me a minute. How about something complex but also simple, like say, the sound of an elephant, perhaps.
Ooh. That was great. Megan, do you have any?
Oh gosh.
You can think about it if you want.
Yeah.
Do you have another question, Megan?
What are violins made out of?
That's a really good question. What's a violin made out of? Usually made out of a kind of wood called maple. And so the one I'm holding in my hand at the moment is made of maple and spruce, I think. And the fingerboards are usually made out of ebony. It's like a black wood. But this violin that I'm holding in my hands actually also has a maple fingerboard and a maple chin rest. So it's actually a lot lighter. This is feels like it's made of air. The violin I'm playing is actually made by an Australian violin maker who lives in Melbourne. His name is Paul Davies, and he has been experimenting with making different violin shapes and electric acoustic violins. So the one I'm holding is an electric acoustic, so you can plug a guitar lead into it and put it through effects and things.
Fantastic.
Computer.
That's amazing.
Do you have a wide violin collection?
I think I don't, but then when I put all my cases out, it looks a bit scary. I like to have one violin that I play all the time.
Yeah.
Since meeting Paul, he sends me sort of his prototypes, and I have lots of fun with them. So he's got a prototype he's just sent me now, which is actually a solid body violin.
Ooh,
It's just
like an electric
so
guitar.
like an electric guitar, pretty much, yeah. So and like the bottom plane's made out of perspex, so it's put in perspex, and it looks like a vintage guitar, which is really hilarious, and it sounds really, really great. But the acoustics, I've got a few. I've got a viola, which is like a lower instrument than a violin. It's a bit bigger and goes a bit lower, which they have in orchestras. And I don't play the cello, but I've got an instrument called a chincello, which looks like a violin, but it sounds like a cello. It doesn't sound like a very nice cello, but it sounds like a cello. So
Is it just got thicker strings, or?
because it's really massive, large strings on it called sensor core strings, and it sounds very growly like a cello.
Ooh. All right, Dougie, did you want to ask your third question?
What was it?
Is that, yep.
Do you have any kids? And if so, do they play violins?
Yeah, my poor kids, they have no choice in the matter. I have 3 daughters, and the other one has just started learning violin,
Yeah.
and 2 of them are learning piano as well.
Wow.
But they're just doing lots of singing. We like to sing a lot, so
So
that's
one
I love
likes
them
to
to
sing,
sing as
do they?
well. Sorry?
One likes to sing, do they? One
Today?
Or do,
I said one of the daughters likes to sing, do they? With the
Yeah,
violin.
well, they all like to sing, so
Okay.
yeah. Often different songs at the same time.
no, that feel.
Yeah, man, that does well.
Oh, that's off the right.
Yeah. All right, Finn, do you want to do another one?
What is your favourite colour?
My favourite colour, I think it's green, which is why I'm wearing blue everything at the moment. But I do like green.
What type of green? Is it the lime green or British racing car green?
I like sort of the autumny greens, you know, greens and burnt oranges and things like that.
Oh,
you know, like,
yeah.
Yeah. Sort of colour of violins. Violin. Yeah, like grassy greens and things like that. And, yeah, mossy greens.
Mahi?
One thing I noticed in recent years is that there have been concerts, events that would actually have a huge orchestra in front of a giant movie screen, and their job is to see if they could play music to synchronize with the actions of the movies on the projection screens. My question is, have you ever done a live scored a film or movie or a TV or shows of some sorts?
Yeah, and I really love that whole thing because it's kind of where film started, didn't it? Like it started with these silent films, and there's either an ensemble or a song on the organ or piano playing along to it. So I've done a few like that. I did a sort of a larger one at the Mercury Cinema a few years ago, which was an old Buster Keaton film, sort of slapstick, black and white.
Which one?
1 hour long film. It was
Buster
called
Keaton.
the Cameraman. It's called.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and he plays like a lowly cameraman. It's so funny, and you know, Buster Keaton always finds himself in the middle of a street gang war and he's falling apart, and the film's popping out. So yeah, it's very funny to do, and he's falling in love with someone in the background as well. And I did it with a quartet, so it was with violin, accordion, double bass, and guitar.
Cool.
And we wrote little themes. We wrote it was almost like our orchestra workshop. We just had some short thematic material and some ideas on colour, and then we would use that and watch the scene and interact. And then when the scene changed, we'd turn our page and we'd have another different theme and a different suggestion of sort of So they're called one-page scores, and it's like somewhere between some page and like jazz chart or something like that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Who's got another one? Megan, do you have another one?
How do you use flutes in a piece of music?
And how do I?
Flutes?
How do you use flutes?
Yeah.
Oh, how do I use flutes in a piece of music? That's a lovely question. That's a really good thing. So I kind of think of the orchestra as 4 people in a big band. And one person is the entire string section, all the violins, violas and cellos. And one person is the brass section, which is all the trumpets and French horns and trombones. And then one person is the percussion section, which is the xylophones and the marimbas and the drums and the cymbals and the timpani. And then the 4th person is the woodwind person, which are the flutes and clarinets and the oboes and the bassoons. So the flutes sit right on top of that. They're kind of the little top line of that person in the orchestra. I like using them for playing melodies because they're so high, they really cut through. And with the flutes, you can also use a piccolo, which is smaller than a flute, and it goes really, really high. If the whole orchestra is playing, you'll still be able to hit the piccolo because it's got its own little frequencies. So yeah, when I want sort of a melody to cut through, I'll use flutes for that. And flutes are really nice for sort of running water, kind of flowing melodies as well. They're really lovely for that kind of stuff. They're very versatile flutes. So,
Cool. And I think, James, you had one more question?
Have you ever played in a jazz club?
yes, that's one of my favourite things ever, is playing in a jazz club.
Is it?
So I guess our jazz club is the Wheat Sheaf on them then, isn't it? The Coma, the Wheat Sheaf becomes a jazz club. There used to be a club called the Fox and Hounds in Adelaide in the 90s. They used to play there a lot, which is where I met my wife, funnily enough. There you go, jazz clubs. And I used to play lots in jazz clubs in London as well, so there's some really beautiful clubs there. There's one called Ronnie Scott's and one called the 606 Club.
Well, you were born in England.
I lived in England for about 11 years.
You were born there, did you? You were born there? Or?
I was born here. I was born
LA.
here. I moved over there back
Okay.
in 2002. Yeah, because I wanted to sort of explore the music world a little bit.
Cool. And is it unusual to see violins in jazz clubs? Or is it more common in Europe?
Less and less unusual? Yeah. It's funny because violins are kind of not at the centre of jazz. You kind of think of trumpets and saxophones and that, but funnily enough, violins were there at the very beginning of jazz, before trumpets and before saxophones. Jazz bands had violins in them, and there was a particular violinist called Joe Venuti back in the 1920s. He was a really famous improviser. He used to play lots of little short improvisations called breaks. In the middle of a song, they'd have a little break, which is like a little 2 or 3 second improvisation, and he was the king of the break. He was very good at that kind of thing. And there are a few theories of why the violin sort of fell from popularity. One being that the bands got larger and the audiences got larger, and we couldn't really amplify violins back in the 20s and the 30s. So people couldn't hear them anymore over the other instruments, so they were replaced with a saxophone section, which was a very new instrument back then.
I think you only headphones, you can listen to each other. And when you talk, like headphone and little microphones, you can talk and hear each other over the top of the music.
Yeah, and you can do that now with violins. You can amplify violins and listen to them with headphones. But back then,
And
microphones were still...
somebody's voice, and if they're talking to you on the other side of the building, you know what note to play next.
That's right, exactly, yeah. And about in the 1950s, people started experimenting with putting special microphones on the violin or pickups. Mine's got a little pickup inside the bridge of the violin, so that picks up the vibration. So it's not a microphone, but it's like a little vibration pickup called a piezo.
Okay.
And so I can get myself heard over the loud drummers.
I remember hearing, so when the microphone first started being used in performances, and I think Frank Sinatra was maybe one of the first people to do this, was, can you hear us? Have we all cut out? Are we cut out?
Right. It's just you and me, Megan, and everyone else.
Oh, we can hear. Can you hear us?
Sorry, so when the mic started first being used.
Yeah, and it was this idea of being able to like whisper into a mic, and it was like the first, so that crooning style was,
Oh, wow.
it's just like, so the Frank Sinatras and all of that could come up to the microphone and like whisper, but the whole crowd would kind of hear you, and it was a very unusual thing.
Wow, okay. I also heard like before then, when the first mics came out, they wouldn't pick up straight tone very well. So people used to use lots of vibrato in their voices. And all the string players and and opera singers would be like very. So, people like Caruso, who's a classical singer, and I think maybe Fritz Kreisler or someone like that. Some of the early violin players would just use lots of vibrato, so their tone would carry.
Interesting. I wonder if that's warped our perception of what music from before that time sounded like.
I think it has. Yeah, I've heard some talks of people sort of going back to Brahms concertos and saying there's nowhere near as much wobbliness in the tone as what we're used to hearing nowadays, because that's almost like a 20th century affectation.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, does anybody else have any other questions that they would like to ask Julian?
Nope.
No, no.
We do.
Oh, Megan's got one.
Megan's got a question.
Go, Megan.
Do you have pets at home or?
Do I have pets at home? My children would love us to have pets at home, but we don't yet because my youngest daughter's still quite small. Yeah, so the only pets we have at home are the unintentional ones like cockroaches and mice. But
Disgusting.
spiders. But we haven't got dogs and cats yet. I think they would love a dog. You know.
Oh yeah. Watch this space.
Watch this space. Yeah.
Yeah.
Start doing doggy sound effects. This is the dog that's outside and wants to come inside. Here we go.
All right.
Or cat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Can you do a cat sound on the violin? We're throwing you some curveballs. So was that all the questions that everybody had?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, Julian, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
We could come to Tutti someday, and
Yes, you're always welcome back.
Yeah.
So we'll sign off, but then can we maybe get you to play us a tune before we leave?
Yes, we'll play a little bit of an Irish ditty.
Oh, very good. Well, my name's been Matt, and I've been joined by
James.
Mikey.
Okay.
Finn.
Megan.
And Julian.
Woo! Thank you very much for joining us, Julian. It's been an
It's about
absolute
to
pleasure.
play something special for us.
Woo! Thank you very much. What station have you been listening to?
Radio today.
Thank you very much, Julian. We'll see you next time. See you, Julian. Julian Ferraretto.